Good morning. Good morning. How is everybody? Good morning. Unless you are doing social distancing, there are lots of empty spaces here. So if people at the back, can they please move forward so we can engage much more closely, please? Wonderful day, lovely morning. It's a little warm, isn't it? A little warm. But I'm sure you've sort of worked your way through all the trials and tribulations of buses and traffic, and you're finally here. So welcome. Good to see everybody. My name is Tariq Qureshi. I will be with you all day, this in the morning at the all of the panels, and in the afternoon with the IKIGAI session with some of our colleagues and facilitators from all over Europe. I'm a futurist, I'm an entrepreneur, and I'm a humanitarian. I think the three qualifications for me to perhaps be here. The fourth is that I am a man, and I feel very humbled and honored that I was invited to host an event of this nature. And I'd like to mention a young activist actress. Her name is Emma Thompson. And she said that men are invited in this whole journey, and that we play, and it is our equal responsibility for all of the things that we will discuss today. So I am the representative for that purpose, so that we are fully involved and fully engaged. The second is I'd like to refer to another young European activist, Greta Thunberg. And I will refer to her from her blah blah speech. And there will be a lot of blah blah today. So what I'm going to do is to reframe that blah blah and to sort of put something specific in there. I recently found about 2 weeks ago that during 2020, $350 billion were invested in entrepreneurial projects in the United States. $350 billion by venture capitalists. Do you know how much of that was given to women entrepreneurs? Any idea? 2.3%. So we can do any blah blah that we want here. If we don't change that systemic bias and that infrastructure, it doesn't matter how good these founders are today. We need to fundamentally change the game at a systemic level. 2.3% is just embarrassing. And I think the people here should really be addressing that issue also, not just the motivation, purpose, empowerment, but also the systemic shift and change. The third one is I was really gratified to see that we have STEAM as the title rather than STEM. Now, science, technology, engineering, maths is really brilliant and it's important, but it's the A. All of the elements around art, culture, humanity, those are the key elements that will actually define the future. Women are going through what I would call the golden age as they go into the future, because technology and machine learning will pick up all of the skills and so on. And anything that can be digitized will be. But anything that cannot, love, harmony, trust, common sense, intuition, heart, soul, spirit, compassion, all of these things will be 1,000,000 times more valuable. And guess what? Women are amazing at that. So therefore, I feel that right now is the time for their future and our future together. So these are a few remarks I wanted to throw in there, that we need to be able to have these conversations in that context. So let's start with our proceedings for this morning. Slight shift and slight adjustment in terms of the order of play. We would like to initially invite Her Excellency Sheikh Alanoud Hamad Al Thani. She is the Deputy CEO and CBO at Qatar Financial Services, and she is live streaming with us. Her Excellency, can we please connect her?
Hello, everyone from Doha. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, it is my pleasure to speak to you today, and I am sincerely grateful to be a part of what I expect will be a tremendously impactful event. Our discussion today comes at a pivotal time. For nearly the past 2 years, all of our countries have rightly been entirely focused on preservation, and not only of human life, but also of our economies. Economically, the European Union and the GCC have been leaders in this regard. Both Europe and the GCC acted quickly with an early and aggressive response to COVID-19 that muted its economic impact and positioned us to recover rapidly. And this was particularly true for Qatar. Efforts to increase economic resilience that were underway well before the pandemic put the country in a strong position. And by all indicators, our economy is already returning to pre-pandemic rates of growth. But despite the success, the pandemic put in stark relief for all of us just how delicate the global economy is. The acute drop in energy prices that accompanied the global lockdown laid bare the importance of diversifying our economies, and particularly in the GCC. Global disruptions made evident weaknesses throughout all of our supply chains. While preservation has rightly been our focus, we know that it is not enough. At the Qatar Financial Center, which I'll be alluding to as the QFC in my proceedings, diversification has been a core part of our mission since our inception in 2005. We were established even as the nation of Qatar was embarking on more than a decade of extraordinary growth, with the recognition that Qatar would, in the long run, need to diversify and develop into a knowledge-based economy. And our leadership had the foresight to recognize how essential it would be to invest its current wealth for the benefit of future generations, a commitment that was subsequently codified in the Qatar National Vision 2030. Today, at QFC, we have helped more than 1,300 companies from around the world establish and operate in Qatar in a wide variety of sectors. At the QFC, we offer a uniquely compelling proposition designed specifically for foreign investors' needs as an onshore business and financial center where international companies can benefit from an independent legal, judicial, and regulatory framework that is based on English common law and international best practice. We are a founding member of what has become a larger ecosystem in Qatar with a range of organizations and trade zones available to support businesses of all sizes across the economy. Companies from around the world are increasingly active in Qatar as a result, capitalizing on both the tremendous opportunities within Qatar and our position as a global business hub. This strong and sustained level of activity has our economy already growing again on all fronts. In Qatar, we of course welcome this growth, but we also understand now better than ever before how fragile it can be, no matter how robust it may seem. One of the many lessons that we take from the pandemic is that we cannot simply return to business as usual. Diversification on its own, while necessary, is not sufficient. As the pandemic passes, we must begin to shift our focus from merely sustaining and growing our economies to transforming them. And this is because as the world becomes increasingly turbulent, the companies that will thrive, and indeed the geographies that will thrive, are those that are not only profitable, but sustainable. Those that are committed not just to the bottom line, but also to all of their stakeholders. Those that are driven by a dynamic, innovative, and diverse workforce, and that are dedicated to sustainable, inclusive growth that is founded upon strong governance. Creating a more sustainable, more inclusive economy is not just a moral imperative, but an economic one. A variety of studies have shown that companies that adhere to strong ESG standards outperformed during the pandemic and demonstrated better resiliency than their peers. Higher ethical, environmental, and social standards can and do help the bottom line. But more importantly, they also reduce risks and enhance the long-term viability of a company. Investors have already taken note. Stakeholder capitalism has become mainstream, and the momentum is only increasing. ESG standards have become a central focus of the world's major financial bodies. Research suggests or shows that more than 85% of investors consider ESG factors in their investments. In the GCC, as our region continues to import capital and talent to support our growth and diversification, New partners will increasingly demand sustainable business models, equitable standards, world-class governance practices, and financial transparency. All of the countries of the GCC have taken some significant steps on this front. In Qatar, we have long invested in social development with efforts ranging from educational programs around the world to NGOs focused on youth training and employment in our region, like Silatech, an incredible organization I was fortunate to be a part of earlier in my career. Qatar National Bank has set up a green, social, and sustainability bond framework to finance ESG-driven companies and projects, and already launched a 600 million US dollar green bond, for which it received more than 1.8 billion US dollar in subscriptions. We have been, or we have the world's fully sustainable downtown area in Doha, Msheireb, and next year we will host the first ever carbon neutral FIFA World Cup in Qatar. These actions are important, but we recognize they are just the initial steps. We have a great distance yet to travel to fully transform our region to achieve the resilience we will need to navigate the next crisis. Integral to this transformation in the GCC and globally are women. To everyone here today, the economic case for gender equality is of course well known. Numerous studies have shown that leveling the playing field between women and men has substantial economic benefits, and that a failure to do so impedes economic development. We also already know that the productivity and growth gains from adding women to the labor force are not merely the result of a greater total headcount, because women bring new skills and strengths to the workplace. According to analysis by the IMF, closing the gender gap could increase GDP by more than 35% in many economies around the world, far beyond the benefit of simply adding the same number of workers. The benefits of closing the gender gap go beyond the bottom line. However, recent analysis has also shown that having more women in business leadership positions leads to higher environmental, social, and governance standards. Companies with more women in leadership positions perform better on critical metrics, stronger internal controls, stronger management oversight, reduced risk of fraud or other ethical violations, greater stakeholder engagement, and improved reputation and brand, to name just a few. In short, women are essential in transforming our companies and our economies into what they need to become in order to thrive. In Qatar, the environment for women is very supportive. Gender equality is embedded in our constitution and in Qatar National Vision 2030. Women are already leaders in Qatar. Women serve in numerous high-profile public roles, including as government ministers, on His Highness the Emir's senior-most council of advisors, as the heads of large organizations, and as Qatar's permanent representative to the United Nations, to name just a few examples. Qatar has a 57% female labor participation rate, the highest in the Arab world, and nearly 3 times the regional average. At QFC, we are proud that 30% of the senior roles in the more than 1,300 companies we license are held by women. I know this is not true globally, and I am thankful to live in a country in which, as a woman, I am able to prosper. Nevertheless, more still needs to be done in Qatar and in every country. In the private sector, there are still far too few women in leadership. Women are woefully underrepresented in the boardrooms of companies, particularly in our region. The majority of companies in the GCC have no women on their boards at all. Given what we all now know about the importance of resilience and the value of female leadership in achieving it, this situation is simply not tenable. But despite these challenges, I am encouraged that the future is bright. In Qatar, women now outnumber men in higher education. Women in Qatar also outnumber men in creating new small businesses. The Qatar Business Incubation Center, for example, has incubated more than 50 women-led companies since it was launched. Almost above half of those companies are led by women. The environment is particularly promising on the digital front, which at QFC is among our primary areas of focus. Digitalization has long been a national priority, but the pandemic has accelerated it exponentially. companies are digitizing their operations 20 times faster than previously thought possible. Even before the pandemic, Qatar had planned to invest more than 70 billion euros in digital services development in the coming years. And we already have a conducive ecosystem with among the best rated technology infrastructure globally. We also have a workforce that is highly educated, skilled, and diverse. And that workforce is eager and growing. Participation of women in STEM education fields in Qatar is nearly 50% higher than the global average. At QFC, we have helped hundreds of firms focused on digital transformation come to this dynamic market and succeed, and the number is growing rapidly. So while we have work to do, I am excited about what the future holds in Qatar, particularly in the digital sector. I'm deeply thankful to live in a country where, while we have not yet reached our goals, I can be confident that our leadership is committed to getting there and that we are moving in the right direction. Discussions like the ones we will have today are critical to us staying on that course. Encouraging one another in our pursuits and sharing the lessons and skills we have learned along the way is essential to closing the gender gap and ensuring women are not only in the workforce, but in the C-suite and the boardroom. The digital revolution is already upon us and happening even faster than expected, and women need to be leading it. Achieving the resilience we need in the GCC and globally to navigate the next crisis will depend on our ability not just to grow, but to transform. It will depend on people like us here today, helping one another, create the businesses and economies that are about not only delivering economic value, but also social value in ways that are systemic and sustainable. And it will depend ultimately on women engaged and leading throughout the workforce, from entry-level engineers to the boardroom. Thank you very much for the opportunity to join you today, and I sincerely look forward to the proceedings. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Amazing speech, and you have covered some critical points, and not only women on boards and representation at the C level, but ESG, which is a really critical element that we will be discussing all day today. We are at the Sustainability Pavilion, after all. And finally, bringing women and getting that gender equality, but I would go beyond equality. I would go to equity and justice and fairness. And that's perhaps for later today. The discussion will be much, much deeper. Now, before we move forward, we'd like to invite Mr. Ludwig Dever. He's a Deputy Commissioner General, and he has kindly accepted to join us. And Jan, so please, sir, come.
Thank you very much, and a very warm welcome to the Swedish Pavilion, the Forest. We are very, very delighted to have you here today. So in the post-COVID recovery and the move towards a more knowledge-based economy, notably here in the GCC, there's a real opportunity to optimize this takeoff by making sure that 100% of the population is on board this 21st century revolution. By promoting women in science, technology, engineering, arts and math, and the STEAM for women, SDG 5 and SDG 9 have a much larger chance to be achieved by 2030. This is especially addressed in SDG 5, enhance the use of enabling technology, and particular information and communications technology to promote the empowerment of women. Art is a key ingredient, as we need to stimulate the creativity and the innovation in order to bridge the gap between more women in STEM disciplines, but still lagging behind when it comes to turning innovation into entrepreneurship, employment, and economic growth. Science, technology, and innovation have potential not only to make incremental progress in the everyday lives of women, but also for the source of the truly disruptive and game-changing solutions. Therefore, the ability for women to access, benefit from, develop and influence these sectors will directly impact whether we achieve the goals of a planet 50-50 by 2030. If women are left out of this 21st century revolutions, we will not achieve a substantive gender equality by 2030. I very much look forward to today's conference, and I hope that IKIGAI and the Swedish Pavilion, the Forest, with its motto co-creation for innovation, will stimulate you to further proceed with this agenda. I would also like to extend my thanks to Her Excellency Sheikh Alanoud Al-Altani, Mr. Stefan Schörling of the EU Service for Foreign Policy, the European Centre for Women in Technology, the ECWT, and Mrs. Eva Fari. And last but not very least, all of you being here physically today, virtually, very warm welcome to the Swedish Pavilion, the Forest. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ludwig. So we'd like to invite now Mr. Stefan Schörling, and he is going to address us on all of the issues that are burning with him. Sir, please.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. The opportunities created by novel technologies and innovations promise to deliver the fair and sustainable recovery that Europe and the world need. However, if half of the population is overlooked as a source of innovation and creative talent, we will miss out on these opportunities, and it just doesn't make sense. I'm very honored today in addressing you as a representative the European Commission based in Brussels on this very important topic of how we can encourage and support more women to enter the tech industry. I would like to thank our Spanish and Swedish colleagues for hosting this event, the Swedish pavilion this morning and the Spanish one this afternoon. And I would also like to acknowledge our EU-financed project on EU GCC economic diversification, which has organized this important conference. The workshop today, such as other events the EU is organizing at Expo Dubai, is conceived in a Team Europe approach by the European institutions and EU member states to reflect the diversity and the assets of Europe. Now, what can we do more at the level of the European Union to encourage and support women to participate in tech? And in the post-pandemic recovery period, that will be particularly important. Let me quote our Commissioner for the Internal Market, Mr. Thierry Breton, who said in a recent speech, "We want Europe's digital economy to empower everyone, regardless of their gender. And to lead the way in the digital transition, our industry needs to fully seize Europe's skills and potential to foster women's talent. We'll pave the way for digital upskilling of women across the EU with the upcoming Digital Europe program, and at least 20% of the Recovery and Resilience Fund is dedicated to the digital sector." Now, let me give you very few specific examples of how we are using this funding. You know, deep tech, as many of you will know, and now I also know, is based on cutting-edge scientific advance and discoveries, and it is characterized by the need to stay at the technological forefront by constant interaction with new ideas and results from the lab. Deep tech accounts for over a quarter of Europe's startup ecosystem, with European deep tech companies now valued at a combined 700 billion euros. However, women remain largely underrepresented across the industry. Only 15% of innovative startups are founded by women, and a mere 6% have all women founding teams. Women-led businesses raise less venture capital than their male-only counterparts, including at the vital early stage investments. And across Europe, only around 5% of venture capital goes to mixed team and only 2% to all female teams. We have also established an indicator on women in digital industries, the Women in Digital Index, to measure the changes of the performance in member states in this important area, to also have the data to see whether the substantial funding we are mobilizing is achieving the results we hope it will achieve. Achieving a European Union of equality that promotes gender equality in all spheres of life is one of the major priorities of the European Commission. And as you have heard this morning, we are working with member states and associated countries and strategic partners, including here in the Gulf, to promote women in leadership and close the gender gap in technology and innovation. I'm very much looking forward to today's conference. I'm wishing you fruitful and productive exchanges and discussions. And for us, at the European Commission, the European Union, it's important to understand better what we can do to support you in establishing, strengthening the role of women in establishing tech businesses, to walk the talk, and, as our moderator said at the beginning, to go beyond the blah blah. And I hope today's meeting will make a contribution to that. I wish you a productive and successful day. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Stefan. Thank you very much indeed. Now, moving forward to the rest of the morning in terms of our first panel. And may I please request Karina. She is a moderator with RDR, but she's not. I'm just joking. I just saw that. So she is going to help us to run this whole session.
First of all, thank you, everyone. Good morning. And we'll start the morning with the self-development panel. And before getting into it, I'll just introduce our wonderful panel. So we have, not in order, I'll start from the other side. So we have Katerina Gari-Fallu, she's the Business Development Director at Clean Planet Energy, and she'll tell you a little bit more in a minute about what she does. We also have Paula Newby. She's the CEO of Predixa, expert in the field of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Equity, very important word for today. We also have Irena Bednaric, Vice President, International Government Relations and HPE, and former member of the Executive Board of Digital Europe. And just here next to me, on my left, Marina. Marina Audru, Founder and Director at WIDE, which stands for Women in Digital Empowerment, from Luxembourg, no? So, what is this panel about? And I think, today these conversations will talk about women and entrepreneurship and what we need, but we want to focus on, by talking about tools and how digital technology has been a game changer for many of us and for women networks and so on. But I want to start because I think it's really interesting to start thinking about IKIGAI and really getting into this concept. What is IKIGAI? And one thing that has been common in my life is that so many times I found myself surrounded by very strong women led by this strong sense of purpose. And I think that's something that is really common among female entrepreneurs, because so many times they have to overcome so many challenges just to get where they were, that sense of purpose really led the way. And I think that's something we should all keep in mind. Also, tech, internet, digitalization, I think they've been great democratizing technologies for many of us, but the challenges that remain are massive. And we talk about entrepreneurship, but for example, at the think tank that I led at Digital Futures Society, so many times we end up looking at areas where women just seem to be invisible. We do research on platform economy. who knows about which are the main platforms in highly feminized sectors? We only talk about male drivers and so on. For example, we do research about the impact of policy on welfare services on women and digitalization of these services. And so many times, very rarely we find these services have been designed with the role of women as carers in society. So the challenges we have to overcome are so many. And I think when we are in the position of leadership, of women as entrepreneurs, we have to keep that in mind. That's in so many contexts, women are just invisible. And we don't have data about what's the experience of women. But I won't delay, and I want to start with our wonderful panel. So I'll start by asking our guests to just to do a very short introduction, 1 minute, just tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're here today. And I'll start with Katrina.
Okay, good morning all. It's a pleasure to be here with you today. If I would get asked the same question a few years ago about what I do, I would say I work blah, blah, blah in this role, in this company, and that would be all. But things changed, and now what I feel, if you ask me the same question, what I do, I contribute for a cleaner planet, and that gives me a great sense of purpose. So what I do, I start as a scientist in the geophysics, in the oil and gas, and a few years ago, I changed and I work for green tech. So I work for Clean Planet Energy as a business development director. And what we do in a nutshell is we take waste plastic, non-recyclable waste plastic, and we convert it to ultra clean fuels. For me, if you ask me what I do, I work for a cleaner air, cleaner oceans, for me, for my family, for everyone, which has a completely different sense of purpose from what I used to do before. And the way we go about it and we do it is by building facilities that we call them eco-plans. So 30% of our investment goes towards the way they look, the facilities, and half of the acres is gardens, is lakes, is educational centers. We're trying to change the perception of what a facility looks like to attract more talent, to be better for the environment. We get loads of criticism because we use waste plastic to produce fuel, and it is true because it comes from fossils, the plastic, as we all know. However, I don't know how many of you are aware, every single day, 876,000 tons of plastic is being produced in a single day, every day. Out of this, only 8% of them gets recycled. And that means that over 203 million tons of plastic gets deposited in our environment every single year. So what we do about it is trying to find ways to deal with the waste. And this is what Clean Planet Energy is about. So I'm sorry I get really passionate when I talk about CP. You have to stop me, but I'm here to talk more about my experience as well as we go along.
Thank you. Paula.
Yes, good morning, everyone. It's delightful to be here. I think I would probably be described as a serial entrepreneur. It all started in 2000 when, having been a textile designer and selling textile designs, I had also been a buyer of textile designs and realized the inefficiencies of that operation, and so I created the very first online trading site for the buying and selling of textile designs, and that was back in 2000. And then since then, I've done various other businesses, and right now I'm co-founder and CEO of Predixa. We have developed a platform, an application that allows the rapid and deep analysis of organizations, particularly in the field of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and this is driven by the power of AI. So very much in the tech space, but equally a passion, because I have actually been involved in D&I for over 20 years. So I've been dealing with this before it was the sort of hot topic it is of today. But yeah, that's my background.
Thank you. Arina.
Yes, hi, good morning, everyone, and thank you for the invitation. So I'm the Vice President of International Government Relations. So basically what I do, I manage the relationships of the cooperation with governments in Europe, Middle East, Africa, and Asia Pacific, and I do business development on governmental accounts. Why am I here today? I guess for two reasons. So on the one hand, I served for 2 terms in the board of Digital Europe. Digital Europe is the largest trade tech association in Europe and very dedicated to promote, let's say, the conjunction of technology and how tech tools can empower women, which I understand is what we want to talk about. And on the other hand, Hewlett Packard Enterprise is the founder actually of the Silicon Valley. And we have incredibly strong, let's say, policies for diversity and inclusion, not only for gender issues. And I wanted to bring a bit of a testimony of maybe a more positive experience on how women are promoted in large organizations.
Thank you. And Marina.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Marina Andrieux. I'm the co-founder and director of WIDE, so Women in Digital Empowerment, an organization based in Luxembourg. We are the leading organization to promote girls and women in tech in Luxembourg. We also involve in many European corporations and projects. Why I'm here? I was last week on the ICT delegation of Luxembourg with 60 people, around 10 women. And I have to say this is already a change, because a few years ago there were just no women joining this delegation. So I think things are changing, but obviously we need more women to take part into the conversation, but also in the game and at leadership position of ICT companies. Then I was asked to extend my stay to be with you today, and I'm delighted to be part of this conversation.
Thank you. And touching already a little bit of what is the ICT sector, no? And we were talking, tell us a little bit about what you think are the drivers and enablers for women to start tech companies, and the role that technology ICT plays in scaling their impact.
Yeah. Well, I meet a lot of women who want to be entrepreneurs or tech entrepreneurs, and I see a common goal for all the ones who want to start their own business. It's obviously more independence, more freedom, but also working to create impact. It can be social impact, do something bigger than just running a company and making a profit. And I think tech can really help. I just take an example. When a girl is a good student in science in high school, often she will do medical studies. That's the typical job or career you can envision. But if you pass a message to the youngest generation that, if they want to create a larger impact and scale, why not work in biotech? Because you can design, research the technology of tomorrow not to reach 5 patients per day, I don't know, to reach a million of people per year. So I think it's an excellent driver, but I think the girls today do not see the opportunity offered by ICTs.
And just before moving, just touching on that, and please feel free to jump in. We know that technology in a certain way democratizes access to other contexts that we didn't have before, but we're still talking about, we need to encourage girls to use these technologies to generate impact in different ways. What are we missing? Where is the gap?
Yeah, well, I think, as I said, when girls are good in science, they join technology classes. We're organizing a lot of coding workshops in Luxembourg, and we see how excited they are with coding and even robotics. But for some reason, when they choose to go to university, they do not choose ICT, and I think the parents have an important role to play, because even the well-educated parents see their boys as being an engineer, maybe not their girls being an engineer. And later in life, what we see is that we had girls who were became women. They come and see us, say, "Oh, I was good. I did a bit of coding at high school. I was not too bad, but I went to do psychology or languages, and nowadays I regret so much that I didn't go further, because I would have had so much more opportunities." So they're coming back to our coding classes. Obviously, it's more difficult to retrain to be a web developer, or IT professional later in life. It's not impossible, but at least getting the basic education in coding helps you to understand better the job of tech people, just to communicate your ideas so other people can materialize this project for you and with you.
Thank you. And I see, Katrina, that you want to jump in. So
there are many things that come in my mind. You mentioned, if I may, to say something about the technology, what technology does, and I'll go back to your point. So I think what it does, and is a gender neutral comment, is makes good ideas to bring them to fruition very quickly. So this is the fact. But also what it has done to women, it gives them access to e-commerce channels, to the valuable network, to finance, to knowledge. My mom can actually use a tablet now, and she's learning a new language that she was not able to do that before. So this is what I think that the technology does. But you mentioned about the gap. So we have women that they start in STEM science. I was a scientist as well when I started, and in my heart I still am. I think they lose inspiration. They turn down jobs, not the science. They turn down what they see, what you become afterwards. And this is what we need to change. We need to change the culture of the companies to attract this talent. And this is not only about women, it's the millennials, and I think I am one of them. This is why women turn down. And also we're still fighting the biases. No matter how many degrees I'm going to have, I grew up in an entrepreneurial family that it was techie, and I was really, really happy about that. But even if I bring a Nobel Prize to my mother, unless I get married, nothing is more important. Right? So the worst moment, it was when I announced that I want to do an MBA on top of a PhD, and they said, like, again, are you going to study it again? So we have to battle all of these things one at a time. I don't think we can do everything at the same time, maybe, but yeah, this is some of the ideas that came up while you were talking.
Yeah. And Irene, I know you want to, and Paula, you both want to.
No, well, I just wanted to say that it is about making these STEM subjects sort of sexy, isn't it, and appealing. I mean, I'm an A, as in the STEAM. My background was very creative, and I have coded in my life, but I don't code. But I've just used technology as a means of making, solving something that I could see could be made quicker, cheaper, more efficient, or whatever. But I just wanted to say that I was talking to a friend of mine who is a primary school teacher in Abu Dhabi, and they have got, her kids are sort of 6 or 7, and not only is STEM in their curriculum, but they have after-school clubs for coding in Python, for AI, and it's just that the educational system now realizes that this is how it has to be, because then the knock-on effect in a few years' time. But I know that our technical guy, who's built our application, he would love to employ and get involved, get some women in, to help with the AI and the blockchain and the cryptocurrency development. But he said, I'm just surrounded by a load of blokes, on the Reddits and all of the social media. So, but it will happen, but it'll take a bit of time. But it has to be made a bit more sexy, I think.
And Irene, I'll pass it on to you, but I want you, to bring in, how ICT can really help women to succeed in their field, together with what we've been talking so far.
Sure, and then I'll comment to something that Katerina mentioned. So I guess there are 2 dimensions across which we can actually work to close the gender gap. So the first one is what has been already mentioned: increase, obviously, girls or women participation in STEM, and that's one thing. The second thing is really the digital skills, which is actually not really only a female or women issue. Mm-hmm. It's also in certain geographies actually a broader societal issue. But certainly I would be happy to maybe walk you through an initiative that we have done with Digital Europe, with Eva from the European Centre for Women in Technology and other stakeholders, to really empower women with digital skills to then apply them in let's say in any area of business that may not be actually linked to digital in the first place. And what has been done there, it's quite interesting. So the first element was really awareness. There are still a lot of people out there that sadly do not realize how general digital skills can increase chances of employability in the first place and then of career progression in the second place. This Women for IT initiative, to which we have collaborated, has reached approximately 10,000 women on this, let's say, in this first awareness phase. And then there were two additional layers. So the second one was really a digital literacy assessment, just to really understand what is the gap to be closed. A matching element. So we defined a certain amount of curricula on which women and girls were trained. And the idea was really to check based on their interest, inclination, and personality and help them, assist them, guide them to what kind of skills and profiles could be more suitable to their personalities. And last piece and core, and I conclude on the question, is really about then personal trainings with mentors and specific curricula. And the women, let's say, a special focus was really the NEET population, so not in training, not in education, and not in employment. And this is just one example of how then women undergoing this program, Women for IT, could open their entrepreneurship, jewelry shops or e-commerce platforms and stuff like that. So, and it's really how you use technology and create an understanding of using technology for then running, starting or scaling a business that may not have anything to do with it in the first place.
And I think that's a really important point, because so many times we talk about, women in tech, but at the end of the day, we're talking about digital skills and technology skills that you can apply in all vertical sectors. And I think that's a really relevant point that you touch. But I don't know if you can go in, but how do we go from digital skills, entrepreneurship to leadership? How do we get that women to be in positions where actually their voice has a meaningful change on policy, on investment decisions, on the dynamics that we have at social level, or organizations like yours, large scale organizations?
No, definitely very happy to comment on that. So I have to say that I'm actually extremely fortunate. I've been with my company for 16 years, and there is a clear reason why I stayed. I mean, for tech, 16 years in the same company is a pretty, let's say, exceptional amount of time. And one of the reasons is that the development and especially diversity, and again, the company is really focusing on general diversity and inclusion. So gender issues are just part of the, let's say, diversity groups we're looking at. And there are a few things I would be happy to share with the audience, because I think they do really empower the women population in the company. So first of all, inclusion and diversity in our company is a C-level conversation. So if you want to ingrain in organization, in our case, we're over 60,000 employees, real diversity and inclusion, it must start at the top. How do we do that? We have, I have to say, a rockstar CEO and president who established a diversity and inclusion committee. But the interesting thing is that he didn't just leave the chief officer for diversity and inclusion to lead it. He himself leads it and puts metrics in that trickle down in the entire organization. Your question is specifically on leadership. So we have a leadership, and so a talent pipeline that has specific focus targets on, again, diversity. And we have a leadership pipeline that focuses on women. A few concrete examples. So we have leadership mentorship programs. So we have the executive committee that handpicks high talent women and basically does throughout the entire year, you're basically mentored by someone that is in the room where decisions are taken. We have then specifically a leadership program, again for women, training women how to operate at board level. So really giving you all the skills that are necessary to be a good operator in boardrooms. Last but not least, and I would go back to what His Excellency the Sheikha Al Thani was mentioning before. diversity is good for business. So one of the reasons we do diversity in our company, I would say there are two reasons. Ethically, it's the right thing to do, period. As simple as that. Secondly, it's good for business. So bringing diverse views, and again, not only women, but, can be ethnicity, religious orientation, whatever. It's actually good for creativity and innovation. And this is really translated then in business success. But I'll pause there. I could comment much more.
Thank you. And I want to connect this with Katrina's experience because I don't know if, she comes from she started in the oil industry, moved to sustainability, tech industry. You start in a very male.
Both are very male-dominated industries.
I want to ask you, what does it mean to be a female there? Is change happening? And does tech play a role in that change happening?
So first of all, I think it's very inspiring, your story, Irina, and it's very nice to see companies that actually mean it and they do something about it. I'm afraid this is an exception, though. And the thing is, how can we help women when they're not in that kind of companies to navigate their career and get their roles? And there are a couple of things that come in my mind. So one of the things I have learned is and you mentioned it, how important it is to have mentors and how important to expand your network in your company. Also, how important it is to support each other, each women, because the problem I have faced is because there are a few places for women to go up. Then when you get at that level, then the women become very competitive with each other. And instead of having the ceiling of the company, we impose an additional ceiling upon ourselves that we shouldn't. So supporting each other is really important and key. The other thing that women should know, because I've worked in a couple of companies in my life, if you cannot change the culture of the entire company, when there's no point, that you have to draw a line in terms of what you can do, and then decide that this is not for me. I've done that in the past, and then you move to a company that actually, pays attention to diversity, not just gender and diversity, right? And you just have to draw the line when to go and just make the jump. And I've made the jump, and I have also a very rock star CEO as well, and 40%, 50% almost of our team are females, and I see the change.
Thank you. And Paula, do you want to?
Well, I just again,
I
echo what Katrina said. Is that speaking to Irina earlier, the HP story you're telling me about is inspirational and also very rare. So you're very lucky. But the way that we see diversity and inclusion is very much starting from the inclusion side. We see what's happening so often is that organizations are responding on the diversity side, particularly because perhaps from stakeholder clamoring, whether it be investors, whether it be customers, whether it be employees, but people are reacting on the D side and thinking, right, we've got to get some women in, or we've got to get people of color in, or we've got to get more people in, with disabilities, because we've got to tick those boxes to keep the stakeholders happy. And of course, that's actually just tackling the symptom, if you will. And what really matters, and picking up on your point, and you can only fight it for so long, because if you're not going to tackle the root cause as to why there is that imbalance and what's happening with that culture, why is that culture so toxic? Or maybe in terms of recruitment, we have, that the recruitment process is not gender neutral, or whatever it is, and not having mentors. These are the things, if they are not sorted at root cause, then no matter how many women you drop in at the top, it's not going to make a difference. So where we come from is very much, and I always use this with my hands, I talk about how we need to drive an inclusive culture that is nurturing and supporting. And what does that mean? That means that people can bring their whole self to work, whatever it may be, whether it's gender, by their ethnicity, by their nationality, by their, disability, whatever. And picking up what you were saying, Irina, then when you have a truly inclusive culture, then you get the diverse workforce on the top, and that diversity of thought can bubble to the surface. And that's exactly when you start to get the superb ideas about innovation, about competitive positioning, about your target market, about really understanding your customers, about increasing performance. And then now we're into increasing your top line and your bottom line. And it all starts with the inclusive culture.
And I think you touched also really important, two really important points: culture and recruitment. Because you were also talking, how hard it is sometimes to hire female programmers and developers, especially if you, as a programmer, are only surrounded by male mates. But for also companies, a challenge to accept that you should have a more diverse culture.
Yes.
So many times the recruitment is about hiring similar people to the people that you already hired.
Absolutely. Can I just give a lovely example, actually? And it is about recruiting. Remember, we're talking about sort of gender equality. That means treating men and women equally. That means recruiting the right person, regardless of gender. And there's a great story, very quickly. About 10 years ago, the Boston Philharmonic Orchestra realized that they had only 5% of their musicians were female. So they held auditions, blind auditions, whereby everybody had to play behind a curtain. And all the French horn played the same piece, all the cellists played the same piece. So the assessing committee were absolutely gauging who is the best person. And as a lovely extra twist, all the candidates were asked to remove their shoes as they walked onto stage, so they couldn't tell whether they were wearing stiletto heels or not. And as a result of those blind auditions, the number of women in the orchestra went from 5% to 30%. But the key thing here is that they were choosing and selecting the best person for the job. And if you have an organization that starts to prioritize women rather than just getting the best person for the job, then what will happen is that those good people that are left will see the bias, the inauthenticity, and think, I can't progress my career, I'm off. They'll go to the competitors, giving them competitive advantage, and they'll also probably badmouth the company on the way, which will damage your reputation. So you end up with a lose-lose. So it's, of course, we want to get more women in, but not at the expense of just recruiting women because they're women. It has to be the best person for the job.
Irene, you want to contribute?
Yes, if I may. So, well, first of all, I can't agree more that I'm against the quotas, because I agree that quality and competence is what you're after, and you shouldn't be just filling a box. But maybe to the previous comments on the culture, and do we have to have diversity and inclusion metrics, or is this like a change of culture that you're trying to instill? And just a few examples of what we have done to precisely change the root culture that you are referring to. So on the one hand, we are running a mandatory unconscious bias training for all employees. So trying, and I realize on myself how rooted certain inclinations that we have. And to your previous point, we are used to hire people that are similar to those that we already hired before. Already having the awareness of our own limitations, it's probably a starting point. And that's why, we run this unconscious bias trainings. Then we actually did a few more things to really try to build an inclusive culture. We actually went through all our marketing materials from a language and imagery perspective and checking if we were using basically language or imageries that were basically not neutral. And you know what, again, working for an organization that is really, really focused at that stuff, it was shocking to me that we found over 1,000 instances that we needed to clean up because they were actually gender or in other ways bias. So, and there are all these elements that you can do to really generate an inclusive culture where then, yes, the women that were hired at the leadership positions or trying to build sign diversity can really benefit of the environment and prosper.
And time is flying, but I have two questions that I really like to touch. First, I'll go to Marina and then go back to Paula. And Marina, talking about diversity and coding for girls and this training, do we see things changing at grassroots level? Do we see this diversity, or what type of kids are going to these coding classes?
First, I wanted to confirm that corporates and the private sector are not there when it comes to gender diversity. It's a topic which is a marketing communication topic these days, and I think with the pandemic, this has not helped, and many projects who might have getting started were just not a priority anymore, and I think that's the biggest problem. Also, I see a lot of enthusiasm for women and men in companies, but when they try to move this as a priority to the executive level, you have always someone to say, "Oh, this is only for women. Forget about it," And so this is important to include everyone in the conversation, and that goes back to having the leaders of the sector joining this kind of events, and obviously they're not attending. Going back to your question, and I don't have a comment to make on starting a company. The girls joining our activities, from what I see, with our experience in Luxembourg, are girls from families who have a dad who is an engineer. So they are very aware that there is no diversity in their teams, that they want to see more balanced organization that is good for many reasons. So often, the most educated parents are really working on this, trying to bring their kids, girls and boys, to encourage them to pursue the opportunities. Then when it comes to choosing university, it's another challenge because kids make other decisions. They don't always follow what the parents say, and maybe it's good. So it's a difficult issue, and for all the other parents which are not in this industry and maybe not aware of the challenges that we have to have a pipeline of talent, and also to be able to get ready for the challenges of tomorrow. The parents think that kids are already spending too much time on screens, games and video and so on, especially with COVID. I've heard that kids are only socializing on phones these days. So parents try to offer other kind of activities to their kids. So obviously coding as an optional workshop or activities or extracurriculum thing that you could offer is not often a priority, because parents want to get their kids outdoor or doing families activities and so on. So that's another challenge to address. So this is why we do family activities, and actually it's quite successful.
I'm being told we're running out of time. Do we have time for questions from the public? I still have one question for the panel. Yeah. So Paula, because I was really interested, and we were talking before, about this. We're talking about women, entrepreneurship, leadership. And I was really interested to talk about, just tell us a little bit how to overcome difficult moments. When you have these moments where you hit the glass ceiling, you feel that you are in the wrong company, or you're starting up your company and it's not working out. How do you overcome that? Because I want us to wrap up, to finish with a positive message.
Well, as an entrepreneur, I think first of all I would say that I think there's, let's just quickly say what are the key traits that you need for an entrepreneur, regardless of your gender, and yes, resilience is one of them. And what does that mean? Well, as an entrepreneur, your life is like this. And when you're here, what resilience means is actually having the people around you who care for you as a support system to buoy you up and talk you through. That's regardless of men and women. Then obviously you need to have a deep knowledge of your market, because the number one reason that startups fail is because there's not lack of market need. You also but then one of the things, you need to be flexible to change, and you need to be curious, and then you need to hustle. And what do I mean by that? I mean, essentially, the easiest way to say is just barge your way to the front of the queue. And that's for men and women. But for women, that's, we're taught to be nice And so there is this challenge that we have, that we're not very good at hustling. And then there's the other issue, which for women that's different, and that would be what's been described as the maternal wall. And that is for when you become, when you're a mother, particularly of young children, that people seem to feel that, you know, you can't be totally focused and committed and a visionary, etc., and be a mother, because surely your first priority is for your children. So I think the things that you have to sort of work with is the resilience, have a network to really help you, learn to hustle, and recognize that there will be these unconscious biases for mothers, but that other than that, you know, as an entrepreneur, frankly, the challenges are very similar other than those areas for men and women.
Thank you. Do we have time for questions? No time?
Thank you, Paul. I think what will happen, we really need to do a hard stop. I've been told that I'll be thrown out very, very quickly.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very
Thank you
much,
very much.
ladies.
Thank you.
So thank you very much for joining us. Tariq runs a company called MAD, Make a Difference. My name is Maddie, Make a Difference Ideas. Everything that I do has to make a difference. If we don't change the life of one person in this room today, then my life on this earth has been wasted, and that's how I relate to things. What's my IKIGAI? What's my raison d'etre, reason to be, why I am here? My IKIGAI is that I want to turn 7 billion ideas into action, one for every person on the planet. Because as you saw from the earlier panel, it's the people who have the ideas, not the politicians. So we have to focus on empowering the people. Now, the reason this is my mission is because I believe we stereotype, we prejudice, we discriminate in any way that we can. And I want you to take me as your example. I have no qualifications. I have no formal skills, and I have no formal training. I am a survivor of domestic violence. I had 2 children who were 3 and 5 years old, and I was a single parent when I started my first business. I'm what you term a necessity entrepreneur. I had no other choice, and guess what? Nobody helped me. Nobody. Because my CV was empty. But there are billions of people, women especially, around the world who have the same capabilities as me. And they're the ones I want to empower. So my panel have got a really tough job, because as you worked out earlier when I raised the question, I'm the controversial one in the room. So I've got an esteemed panel. Their names are all there. Mr. Ponce is the General Director of CDTI, the Center for the Development of Industrial Technology. Sorry. Right. So I can't do these things. Suzanne Mikhail, who is UN Women Regional Director for the MENA region. Grete Gutmann, who is from Civita, who works on entrepreneurship, empowering and developing. And Nadia Katsanou, who's from Greece, who's been working on projects and is working on the World Radio Conference. So I'm really interested in learning more about that. I'm not going to waste any time. They can introduce themselves. If you can just take 1 minute, 2 minutes maximum, first of all, to quickly say who you are, what your company does, but also what your Ikigai is. Okay. Mr. Ponce, let's start with you.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to have here and have the possibility to share some ideas that we have developed at CDTI and where are the troubles we see at the present for the career of females in Spain, and especially in technology. That is the area that we work. We are the CDTI, it's the Spanish innovation agency. It belongs to the government, and the main action is to fund business, research, and technological development project in Spain. We have developed this job for 43 years old. So CDTI was an agreement between the transition government from the democracy in Spain with the World Bank and with the support of the MIT, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, that proposed a system to give money, to give grant, but especially loans, soft loans with non-reimbursable parts. That this is our main financial instrument we use. And we have a big track record, and we have managed big data in relation to a personal cost of our of the technology projects developed in Spain, especially from the private side. So that's the environment that I am working on. I have 3 sons. I'm married. My wife has few opportunities during his career. I think she's very successful, professional successful in Spain. It's okay, but I have suffered in my personal life what I do in companies sometimes that we will have time during the dialogue, maybe after. No? But this is I heard something in companies, gender equality and so on, but sometimes words, only words. Because I think other times are not the case, but I prefer just to go into deep knowledge after with on the dialogue.
Very good, thank you. Susanne.
Sure, so I am Susanne Michael Eldhagen, and I am currently the Regional Director for UN Women based in Cairo. I've been with UN Women only 1 year, but I've been with the United Nations around 20-25 years, but also with the Swedish government through SIDA. I just came out of around 10 years as Director of Humanitarian Assistance, and now working on gender equality. And I wonder if IKIGAI can actually change throughout your professional and personal life. My IKIGAI previously was to ensure humanitarian assistance in a fast and equitable way. What does that mean? In humanitarian principles, they say humanitarian assistance is based on needs alone, regardless of your ethnicity, gender, political affiliations, etc., etc. So that was one IKIGAI. For me now, the IKIGAI is really gender equality throughout the Arab states. Sounds like a very difficult mission. We will come back to it later. It is partly, but actually, I do see a unique window of opportunity in the coming years, and I will dwell a little bit deeper into that. I'm also married, 2 children. Gender equality for us throughout our marriage has actually been, in very practical terms, supporting each other, supporting each other's careers. For example, just now, my husband recently left his job as Deputy Director General at the Ministry of Finance in Sweden to join me in Cairo for a couple of years as Regional Director. I've done the same for him. For us, it makes perfect sense, common sense. So that's very shortly about me, and I'm very, very eager to listen to all of you throughout this panel. Very exciting to be here.
So one of the first points to pick up there is that your IKIGAI can move. It doesn't have to be stationary. So I think we should value that. Thank you. Greta.
All right, thank you, and thank you for having me here. I'm Greta Gutman, and I'm the team lead for the startup team in Civita. So Civita, it's a management consulting company in the Central and Eastern European region. We're today in 17 countries. And I have to say, I feel very lucky to say that I work in a company where 40% of management is actually female. And in Estonia, I don't know the exact percentage, but I think it's around 80%. So in that sense, I feel very, very lucky. And as I mentioned, I work in the startup team, and for the past 7 years, my work has been mostly focusing on creating sort of a vital startup ecosystem, both in Estonia, but also in Europe more widely. And couple of examples this year, we've actually had also 2 initiatives, one a female founders accelerator in Estonia and a similar initiative for a hackathon pre-accelerator also in Moldova. And I guess the reason I was invited here is that for the past years, I have focused more on creating these sort of investment readiness trainings or programs, etc. So I've been more active in that field. And about my IKIGAI. So I think today I am really sort of passionate about creating an ecosystem where anyone, regardless of their gender, of course, can feel confident in starting a business and that the support structures are there, etc. And I think in Estonia, we're really good at that. As this is a very personal panel, then I can also mention that I also have a little son at home and my boyfriend is currently taking care of him.
Perfect, thank you. Nadia.
So, hello, I'm Nadia Cazzano. I'm very pleased to be here. Thank you for your invitation. And so I'm a senior scientific expert in radio communications in the National Regulatory Authority of Greece in telecoms and post. So recently I have been one of the coordinators of the network of women of the regional body, the CPT, which is the conference, the European Conference for preparatory of the Radio Communications World Conference of ITU, which is the international, it's too many terms anyway, it's the International Telecommunications Union. So I've been working in the field of telecommunications for over 20 years now. My position in EETT, which is the Greek regulator, is to regulate, of course, telecommunications and radio communications in Greece. I've been also for many years working in the National Research Center for Scientific Research in Greece, Demokritos, for EU R&D projects. So I've been also in this center. I'm now a cooperative assistant. So I'm still working, let's say, in the EU R&D projects. I was also in the thematic network of the European representation in Greece on the Team Europe, let's say the team of Team Europe, on the telecommunications aspects, so how to promote telecommunications in our countries. I'd like to bring here the international aspect of a very technical field, that is the radio communications. Of course, it's a very technical and very male-dominant field. But for that, I would like to encourage women to jump in this field and to, of course, I mean, it is very much based on STEM and on technical studies. So I have studied computer science and networks and telematics at that time in Paris. And then I had a PhD assistantship in the Joint Research Center of the European Commission in Northern Italy, where I did artificial intelligence. So this term was quite unknown at that time in my country. And the only field I could work was the research. So that's why I started in the Demokritos Center. So I'm also married, have 2 children. They're big now. I mean, they're not small, young ones. And I had the chance to have a husband who was supported me in all my travelings and all my aspirations. And I think that's very important because I have many colleagues that have many problems on this.
Great, perfect. Yeah. I'm going to throw the floor open to questions as they arise in your heads. So I'll regularly look over here. So if you've got a question, signal to me and we'll introduce it into the conversation rather than leaving the time at the end when there won't be any time for questions, because Tarek will throw us off. So, Mr. Ponce, please tell me what tools there are to help empower female entrepreneurs or women leaders, women managers? What is it? Can you do it in 3 to 4 minutes maximum?
Okay.
And then I can also throw it to the rest of the floor. Thank you.
Okay, right. I will try to show some of them, but at the beginning, I would like just to go up from the theory. Sometimes it's more easy to demonstrate something to the society if you have a robust theory behind you. First of all, how the society works. And we are speaking about technology, so I will take the example of the panel before, just to explain something that it is in our mind, but we don't reflect about it in a daily phase. This is the innovation theory. It's we work in innovation. There is a big effort that this is just demonstrated. That this is the lock-in effect. The lock-in effect is how the developed societies works. You buy one electronic mobile, speaking with your network, which is the beta, which is the best business product, which is the personal product do you need, and this is a network feedback. That is this is the reason why one, maximum 2, 3 products are in the top of the selected options you use daily. We make this every day for everything that involves technology and innovation. So this is something that affects also when you are recruiting people, because there are a lot of networking things inside the organizations. If you don't cut the feedback between network, you will select, and I don't know, there are a lot of societies that it's more used to have a network with the same gender than different gender. So you are in a worse position if you are a female, because the network is not so big. It's not the selection is not taken by this network. Okay, so this is a theory that we can assume during the recruitment process when you are inside one organization, and that's proof. In technology, it's evident. We use Microsoft. Why we use Microsoft? Because everybody use Microsoft. So you have to select the same that people is selecting. So technology is a good example in this way. Why you use a man sometimes? Because the decision making is taken by men, and they use the network they have. So you have to cut with this issue. Okay, but I am agree with one of the panelists before that you have not select if it's not the right person. Yes. That's okay, but you have to select a female if she is in the same position than a man. If not, it will be impossible to cut the network of the power of this organization. Okay, so first of all, the first thing you have to do is just to put an objective. You have to be balanced. Gender equality, of course. You need a gender equality plan. We force the companies we finance to have a gender equality plan. But in your organization, and we have tested at CDTI. CDTI, we are civil servant. It's quite easy to have a balance because traditionally, the civil servant is more stable employment, so women try to go to have a more easy environment to be pregnant, to have more possibilities into the organization without risky positions, like in a private company, at least in Spain. So. We have 54% of females in our organization, and we have a real balance in our direction. Yeah? Same males than females, of course. That's but this was an objective 10, 11, 15 years old. Now it's a reality. When you have a good base, we have 54% of women. It's quite easy with the time, just going and down. But you have to cut the network of men, okay? You have to impose that this has to be achieved at least in one period, reasonable period. That's critical for the organization. And also it's critical just at the same situation, take the female. If not, you will not achieve the objective. That's for me, it's a critical thing on the recruitment issue in one organization. In companies, it's quite difficult sometimes. We have detected, but private companies, it's the case that I can trust. I can say.
That's brilliant. Thank you. No, but one of this network thing, or changing the dynamics of what we're really used to, as an example. When I was invited, I said, oh, I'm really sorry, but I don't sit on or I don't moderate all female panels. I object to all male panels and I object to all female panels. And we were lucky to have Mr. Ponce, because otherwise we don't change the dynamics of the conversation. So you can easily ask for something when you see that something is wrong. Susanna, you're working in networks across the world. I know from your humanitarian work that you must have been. How do you change the dynamics within the networks? How do you get women included?
All right, thank you so much. And maybe just, you had a very good segue. Well, how do you change? Well, it's about speaking to the non-converted. You always have to speak to the non-converted. In the humanitarian field, sometimes humanitarians are actually quite criticized for speaking with terrorist organizations, guerrilla group, etc. But if you want to reach a certain population, 300,000 people, boys, girls, men, women, and you know that you have to be there within, let's say, 3 or 4 weeks with all of the basic humanitarian assistance, who do you speak to gain that access? You see what I mean? So you always have to, in a way, ensure that you speak to those who are challenging your objective. So that's the number one. So what does this mean for gender equality in the Arab states? Who do you then speak to? Well, you have to speak to different layers, and that's when you do your networking. Number one, governments, because ultimately you do have a number of decision makers that are within that platform. And this is where I'll come back to the window of opportunity that we see quite clearly in the region. We are clearly seeing the correlation between gender equality, this is global, not only in our region, the correlation between gender equality on one hand and the speed of economic recovery post-COVID-19. So any country that wants to accelerate that speed in terms of economic recovery, then of course one of the main tools to address that is to ensure gender equality throughout the different aspects of society. We had a number of really interesting discussions, in-depth discussions, talking to or alluding to the speaking to the non-converted with government representatives, NGOs, CSOs, feminist organizations, youth organizations throughout the region. And the number one priority that came throughout all of these consultations were gender equality, and particularly women in the labor workforce, ensuring women economic empowerment. That's what we call it. It's a technical term. In other, it's basically about jobs and accessing a 50-50 labor market. Now, in terms of networking, that's one layer. Another layer, of course, is to ensure that private companies also adhere to it. And we just heard from the previous panel how difficult that is. But one of the very interesting networks that we have all over the world, but specifically in our region, is the network of women empowerment principles. Maybe some of you have heard of it, even signed up to it. In our region, we have more than 312 private companies that have signed to it, which is 7 very basic principles. And if you translate these principles into action, what you will ensure is attracting women to your company, recruiting women to your company, and retaining women to your company. And again, as much as governments see the value added of gender equality throughout society and the direct links to social development overall, private companies are increasingly seeing the link between diversity, gender equality in your company, and profit. There's a multitude of research now. Some of the research show of an increased profit of 15%, some up to 25%, regardless of where you look. The correlation is crystal clear. But that network is brilliant because what happens within that network is private companies share good examples. This is our accelerator. This is what we have done to ensure, let's say, a 40-50, 40-60 or 50-50 labor workforce. Sometimes it's, I know the previous panel had some thinking about the quota system. We call it special temporary measures because quota is something that has been quite discussed frequently in the private sector. We might want to come back to it. A private company or a company in general, even the public sector, sometimes find that a so-called special temporary measure helps you for a specific period of time to simply get that mile that you need to ensure to then release that special temporary measures. Others say, no, we don't need that in our company. Actually, we just need to be blind towards recruitment. We're going to recruit the best of the best. We're not looking neither at faces nor names. And within that methodology, this is how we have accelerated our, for example, female labor workforce. So there's many different ways of doing it. And the beauty of this network, again, is the sharing the examples, sharing the practices that have really led to that acceleration.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much. And Greta, as technology has increased and our access to information has increased, which really helps empowering people like me who never had that university education or access to money, has that been increased by technology?
I think this has already been addressed many times this morning, and we all know the answer. I just quickly want to comment on the network section as well, because again, I feel again very lucky. We always joke in Estonia that the Prime Minister is like maximum 3 phone calls away because the country is so small. However, the jokes aside, in the startup ecosystem, networks are a huge part of success, a huge part of building companies, etc., etc. So one of the major parts of our work is actually building those networks and making those connections. However, also what we have seen with the female accelerators, etc., that we have done is that we do not want to segregate at all, but women feel very comfortable speaking to other female entrepreneurs. And then we have been providing these environments where we have mentors that are previous successful startuppers, maybe employees in startups, etc., to share their sort of knowledge, experience, etc., etc. And that has been a very effective way to also sort of distribute this knowledge as well. But to access to money, then of course the statistics are absolutely not great, 2% about, as we were already speaking. More so, actually the amounts of funding are about 2 times less than men raise. So each individual ticket is like on average, I think 1 million, and for men it's on average 2 million. So, you know, you can imagine you can do 2 times more with that money. The problem is also with VC fund managers. The same percentage there are founding partners in VC firms. So, however, on the positive side, the statistics also show that women tend to have higher revenues, more profits, and also they exit at higher valuations than men. And all this by raising less money. So they use less investment, but bring higher returns. So it's a huge market opportunity actually for investors to fund female-led or mixed-led companies. So in that sense, I would actually say the situation, if this is realized, is quite positive in that sense. And it's I think if more female entrepreneurs understand this, it's also something they could use when they are fundraising, etc., to bring this information to the investors who maybe are not aware of this. So, but like in terms of actually accessing money, I don't feel there's a big difference between men and women, like in terms of the things that they need to deliver, especially in the early stage companies. It's still about having a business, not a product, but an actual business that's solving a market need. It's about having a good team, sizable market with a good growth rate. You have to have your legals in order, and of course an attractive offer to the investors as well. What you might want to do is, of course, do let's say extra background and extra sort of, when you list the investors that you want to contact, you may want to do your extra background checks. Finally, I also wanted to mention on crowdfunding really quickly, where the situation is a little bit more democratic, actually. So in terms of global crowdfunding, it's about 30%, a little bit over 30% that goes to women. And in terms of the funders, it's also about 35% that are women globally. So you can see how this crowdfunding model, where anyone can become an investor and it's easier for you to go and fundraise, it's bringing this equality a little bit more, etc. What is interesting to see, though, is that women are really active in the donations-based crowdfunding, which is more for social causes, maybe not so much for entrepreneurship today. Still, it's really great, but maybe it's not that great for entrepreneurship. But other than that, I think the models are the same. But I just wanted to mention that in crowdfunding, maybe the situation is
No,
a
and
bit
I
better.
I just want to add one more point to your list of why women are a better investment. We fail less. So Sheikha Al-Talini will probably also be able to endorse. We fail less, therefore we make a better investment, and returns on investment are higher. So women are in all sectors now, and I really want to just say to all those millions of people watching out there, because I know this is also live, that come on, if I can do it, you can do it. Women, we have all the tools. We are great entrepreneurs. Just start. You don't even need the business plan, even though everybody says you do. You don't. Just start. Just start and try it, please. Nancy, you've started, you've done it. Please tell us, but you've only got 3 minutes.
Oh, okay.
So if you can please just tell us how you've done what you've done. Some statistics I think you would like to share will be great.
Yeah, I wanted to add some numbers following Greta's speech. So I have here $13 trillion that could have been added to the GDP by 2030 if women participated equally in the global economy. And 16 billion euros, it's the annual productivity loss for the European economies due to women leaving their digital jobs. So there are many numbers that are quite significant. And
so let's just repeat those because they are significant.
Yeah.
So this $13
trillion additional GDP by 2030.
Additional GDP, which could have been attained if we engage women in the workforce.
Exactly, yeah.
Yep.
And 16 billion.
16 billion
euros.
Yep.
Euros.
Yep.
It's the annual productivity loss for the European economies if women didn't leave their digital jobs.
So 16 billion from annual productivity lost in the EU. I mean, I'm sorry, that's where our growth is going to come from. Please continue. Can somebody please make sure that the gentleman from the European Commission gets to hear that?
I think they know because it's
It's
out
their
of
figure.
their
So
reports.
this is what they should be endorsing.
So, and there is another reality which is disappointing for us, unfortunately. So over 1,000 of women graduating universities, I mean higher education, only 24 are graduated from ICT-related fields, and only 6 are working in digital jobs, where men, 49 are working in digital jobs. I mean, in the same analogy. So I want also to add that fewer women than men engage in innovation or entrepreneurship. So we have an limited women's impact on the digital transformation in that way. That's the numbers I wanted to add, and to start that my personal journey starts from my studies, were based on computer networks, computer science, and telematics. At that time, where started the convergence of technologies back then. So the fact that I had done these studies on ICTs, and the fact that I have worked on the National Research Center of Democritus on ICTs, on these EU projects. So this helped me position myself in the regulatory authority where I am working now for 20 years. And I have started working in the radio communication field as of for the start. So that means spectrum, radio frequencies management, international coordinations. So are very technical field. So of course it frightened me in the beginning, but thrilled me at the same time because a new world has opened to me due to these international aspects of the International Telecommunications Union. I'm now chairing a European working group for the European Commission on how to formulate, assisting the European Commission in formulating the positions, the European positions for these World Radio Conferences. I have already talked about this network where we have mentoring programs also. We share knowledge, and I think it is I value very much this network because it gives an opportunity to women to understand how these international organizations work and to give us opportunities also to chair, to have leadership positions. Okay, I finished. I have to finish. So I think we have to encourage women, encourage ourselves, and support each other, and encourage each other to jump on those fields, on those technical fields.
Can I add?
A 30-second sum up from each one of you with your last point. So, Mr. Pons.
Okay, right. Something related with great participation. I think on entrepreneurship, for example, in Spain, we have detected, if we take the General Entrepreneurship Monitoring report, that this is an international report every year, on 2019, in Spain, was 48% of the entrepreneurships were female. Was quite nice, a nice position. We have detected a decline after the pandemic.
Yes.
Okay, but this is something true, I think, in every country. So it's declined to 40%, more or less. This is not only for technology firms. Okay, it's in general speaking, in entrepreneurship, generally speaking. Technology firms, it's declining because our data in CDTI, business, research and technological development, we have from 2019 to, 14 to 2020, we have detected 20% of the contact person of the project, so the leader project, are females. So we are going down. But a very interesting thing that is when you consider the qualification of the people working on technology project. For medium qualification, we have 90% of the jobs are females. If you go to higher education, 28% are women, and if you go further for PhD, 38% of the jobs are women. So women are increasing when you are increasing the education or the qualification you are claiming for the project. That is something important. The last one, it's we have detected the decline of entrepreneurship, and we will launch during the next weeks a specific call for proposal for entrepreneurship of companies, new based technology companies that belongs to women. Okay,
that's
I
excellent.
think it's
so we will talk to people over lunch, and we'll find a way to put that out also to promote that initiative. Suzanne.
Sure, 30 seconds?
Yeah, please.
Okay.
Basically, I just want to allude to the figures that you presented. Of course, these are also translated to national levels, GDP outputs that could have increased on national level if we would increase the number of women in the labor workforce. In this region in particular, can I say that it's an unnecessary loss? It's unnecessary because women are quite educated. Even in the ICT sector that you alluded to, women here outnumber men in most universities in this very field. So by advancing in the labor workforce, entering the labor workforce, advancing and exceeding, I think in this region particularly, it comes not despite of your gender, but because of it.
Greta?
Right, thank you. You actually said what I wanted to say, which was that the main thing is just to start in terms of entrepreneurship. I mean, just to start, if you have an idea, you know what a problem that you would like to solve, just start. I mean, the first idea that you go with, it doesn't have to be the one that flies, but just to get the experience, find your local support systems or structures or programs, really take part, because there are great networks that they can connect you to, as well as give you many of the important skills that are necessary. And maybe finally, one thing that, like in terms of access to finance, I think today's statistics actually show that being a woman is not a weakness, it's a strength. Right. Yes, in the sense that you will be able to bring more value back to the investors, statistically.
Thank you, great point. Nancy.
Yeah.
And Nadia.
Thank you. So I'm not in the entrepreneurial aspect, but I still think that ICT is a very powerful tool to continue. And the digital transformation also is a very new potential for growth. And it's now the time for women to close the gaps and recover economically from the pandemic, which has gone us back 36 years, the pandemic. I mean, I read this in a report. So I would like to stress that we have to dare to open the doors and to ensure that all these doors remain open for all of us.
We have to open the doors. We have to kick the doors down because it's not going to be opened for us, that's for sure.
Yes.
So thank you very much to the panel. Thank you very much for all of your input. Gandhi said, you must be the change you want to see. Maddie says, you must be the change you want to see. No excuses. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. I have this very uncomfortable role as the time police.
Great.
To have such wonderful conversations going on. A couple of data points, if I may just add. One announcement, the break is slightly shorter, it's 15 minutes. Secondly, for Q&A later on, if you come to this afternoon session, you can beat each other up as much as you like, and myself, for as many questions we want. We have much, much more time. So if you could just hold on to your questions, come to the IKIGAI session this afternoon, you will actually get that. Two data points, Nadia. One of them is that McKinsey study is 28 trillion increase in GDP because of women empowerment. For you, by 2025, absolutely.
But because it's by
that's right.
2030.
That's right. And then McKinsey is actually accelerated if you get gender parity. Greta, going into crowdfunding, one of the new trends is they start with crowdfunding and go for the funding later. So that becomes an integral part of every startup because you've already won the stripes, because you tested your product and you move forward. And last point is that women during COVID, were disproportionately affected by the COVID. 66 million of them, home workers, working in the service sector and other areas. They're the ones who can come back now that we are almost out of it to be empowered and really bring about that change. So thank you. Thank you very much indeed. 15-minute break, and we'll take the pictures outside.
I want to start with an important title of a book. I guess the one who wrote it was Todd Henry. He said, Die Empty. Die Empty is the title that really I stopped and concentrated when I read it, because Die Empty is die empty of dreams, empty of passion, empty of everything that you wanted to achieve in your life. So if you die empty of all these dreams, then you're the luckiest. And the word passion is really has always been the partner of every successful person, and my partner too, nearly my obsession, or my sickness even. So I'm a person, like everybody else here, who hate safe zones, who believes that safe zones kill dreams. And when I first read the first question that I should ask to my panelists, that was how to turn enthusiasm to a business success. How to turn enthusiasm to a business success. Well, I don't know how. I just know that if enthusiasm doesn't take you there, that it's not called enthusiasm, simply. I prefer the questions that have to do with the why not. Why not? Why not going there? Why not succeeding with your dreams? Maybe we have, because we have the monsters in our life, the monsters that are not only the competition and the others and the culture and all this stuff. The monsters are what's inside us, are the adjectives that are related to successful people. That is, successful people have their dark side. They are lost, they are confused, they are depressed, they are angry, and they are doubting all their abilities at a certain point. So these monsters should be killed. Because no monsters, no heroes. So life is always, evil is always there. It's within us sometimes, not only with the others. So there's a small thing just I want to mention from a personal experience. Our friend here talked about marriage and her mother telling her, where's the husband? In our societies, we have different constraints. In mine, we have the burden of the secure jobs. If you are in a secure job, your parents won't accept that you leave, won't accept that you quit for an adventure. You should always stick there. I studied business management. I studied leadership. I worked in the central bank, in the Banking Control Commission, which was one of the best positions in Lebanon. And it has huge benefits. And I went to media by coincidence, and I fell in love as a coup de foudre, as we say in French, with this field that I didn't study at the beginning. All the community, most of the community, friends and parents, they said, you are in a job that secure you after 64, after you are 64. How can you leave this job? I said, and should I live the burden of sadness every day in a job that I don't like? So just to secure my life after 64, what if I don't live until 64? So let's start with passion. Let's start with our panelists today. Each one has a story. Each one is a hero. I want them to introduce themselves first and tell us how they define passion and how did they bring passion into business and planning. We start with you, Sarah.
Hi, thank you so much for having us here and to shed the light on such an important topic. My name is Sarah Al-Madani. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I'm a single mom and a public speaker. Single mom is a full-time job. So the thing is, I wish passion was something I can just go to a supermarket, buy it in a can, and take it back home. But passion is something for you to discover. It takes a lot of time and a lot of research, a lot of realization, because a lot of people think that their passion is their hobby. Hobby is something you do when you have the time. Passion is something you do whether you have the time or not. You don't even understand why. And I remember my first introduction to passion was, okay, let me put it this way. I was a fashion designer for 20 years, 21 years actually. I started when I was 15. I just closed my company around 2 years ago. And I closed it because I had no passion to fashion anymore. I realized that I've never had passion to fashion. I just did it because it was fun, I liked it, and it made money, and it was good. But with age, you discover that no, that's not what passion is. If you're waking up dreading waking up every morning, tired, wishing you could do something else, then that's not what your passion's at. And once I was in Paris and I met a ballerina and I went up to her and I'm like, "Can I see your feet?" Because her ballerina shoes had blood stains in the bottom of them. I'm like, "Can I see your feet?" She's like, "Of course," with a French accent. She's like, "Of course." I was like, "Okay." And then she took it off, and then I saw that her toes were dislocated, her nails were gone, her feet don't even look feminine anymore, and she was bleeding. but she yet had to dance 3 more dances. I'm like, why are you doing this? She's like, I'm like, are you getting paid? She's like, no. I'm like, so why are you doing this? She's like, I don't know.
I'm in love with it.
I don't know.
Yes, she's in
And when
love
she
with it.
said, I don't know, and I was like, you're going through all of this and you can't even explain it to me. And then I realized this is what passion is. It's something you do, you don't even know why. It speaks to your soul, it speaks to you, it makes you feel alive, and you just want to do it, whether you're busy or not. And it's not a hobby. So a lot of people confuse these two together.
Yes.
But it's a long journey. It takes time. It's not something you find overnight.
She knows what she's doing. Love is never blind. Everything else is maybe.
True.
Charlotte.
Yeah, first of all, thank you for having me. My name is Charlotte, and I'm the CEO and founder of Total Control, which is a food waste prevention software company that has done a lot of good things. But I would like to kind of take you through just a bit about me. I started working at the age of 12, and I did what most of us does, is basically fulfill everybody else's expectations. But at the age of 29, I started the company and I started to fulfill my own expectations and my passion. So we have developed a company, or built a company, that has now stayed alive for 3.5 years during a pandemic in the food industry, preventing food waste, and have received over 34 awards for our technology, been ranked alongside Amazon and Walmart for what we do with prevention and reduction of food waste and changing the food industry to be more circular. And that is my passion. I am nerdy about barcodes, food industry, anything like that. So if you have any questions around that topic, but it's good to be here and be surrounded by people that are passionate about what they do and changing the world for the better.
Darja, could you tell us what you do and how passion played a role in your business now?
Oh, sure. And yeah, thank you for having me here today. Yeah, I have been working with sustainability for the past almost 20 years. First with fashion, high-end sustainable fashion, and then moved to life-loving technologies. And I don't know if life-loving needs a little explanation. It's I'm not a fan of word sustainability at all, and I thought we needed to come up with something more self-explicatory. And life-loving means no life is too small to be walked over on economic terms. So yeah, I founded Mox World when the pandemic started. Just as I told you, from boredom, not quite, but I wanted to scale what I was doing before. And now what we do is, like, we have a global company was located in 4 different continents, and we haven't even met each other, actually, all the people. So it's all like a company founded online, and helping life-loving technologies to find their rightful place in the sun. As I believe, as long as the tech companies that actually built and founded to solve the planet's problems, when they are not in the core of the economy, no impact will happen. So this is our mission, to get them there where they belong to.
Pandini?
Brilliant. Well, look, I actually started my journey as a banker. So I spent about 10 years doing that, winning a couple of awards in California. And then I joined and did my master's at Oxford. Then I joined the World Economic Forum as a global leadership fellow working on climate change. Then I decided I want to come back here. This is where my family's been for decades now. So I came back here, ran my family's businesses, and that's when the idea for RISE came about, because I felt strongly that we need a fairer financial system and that migrants need that desperately. And so I built that. And then during COVID, when I saw that migrants needed it even more, because cash could no longer be a way of sending and spending money, I built a way, my company built a way of sharing access to financial services, because we don't know it, but only 1/3 of the world actually works and earns an income, and 2/3 of the world shares that income with them. They spend someone else's money. And so Share has actually built that. And how did I do it? Well, I did it because of passion, because I strongly believe in a fair financial system. And one of the things I was thinking about as I came over here is how do I define passion, right? Because it's a word that is often misused. So many people are passionate about everything from cakes to shoes.
Yes.
And so I actually use this definition. I carry it along with me. So it's borrowed from the German word called Leidenschaft. So what is Leidenschaft? It's our ability to endure and to embrace struggle and to overcome suffering. Because there's something bigger out there. There's something that you're working on that you want that is bigger. Passion is what you bring to the table when the going gets tough. It's the energy and enthusiasm in those struggles, not how well you enjoy it when things are going well. And I think that definition of passion is what I carry with me in my entrepreneurial journey.
This is very interesting. Sarah, how did you overcome these fears? How did you overcome these failures sometimes? How do you keep passion at its most?
The thing is, I was bankrupt twice, so
Oh, good reason.
so so when your biggest fear is losing everything and you keep preventing it and working so hard, and once it hits you, you're like, okay, everything's gone, but I'm still here. I've got this, I can start all over again. We entrepreneurs are like birds. When our nest is blown away, we go to a different tree, we rebuild it again. So fear either makes you or breaks you, like failure. It either makes you or breaks you. It's an expensive school, but it's a teacher in the end.
It's the best teacher. You should fail as
Best
much as
teacher.
possible if this is the experience. to
Best
build.
teacher. So I don't think I had to overcome it. I lived it and I witnessed it, and then I realized that our biggest fears are basically fears in general, are just walls, illusion we build in our head.
Charles, some people believe that you have to have a personal trait to be able to reach anywhere or to reach your passion. Is that true, or we can really work on ourselves to build this trait?
I would say
Are we
besides
born with
having,
are we born with passion, or we acquire passion?
I would say everybody should have a personal trait in blue hair, first of all. But
Through your
I think-
experience.
Yeah, I think one of the things is for on a personal trade side of things. I think entrepreneurs have a tendency to be extremely good at learning fast and adapting to hard situations. And I think that is something that you can also learn, but it's also ingrained in you from the very start. So I think that has been extremely valuable, especially running a company during a pandemic and kind of seeing all of the challenges facing financial stress.
Moving from an employee to a boss, really,
Or a
it's-
leader, not a
or
boss.
a leader.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, it's a better word. Moving carries with it a lot of responsibility and a lot of fears. You're leaving a comfort zone, kind of.
I think.
How did you build your own project?
In my case, I kind of haven't felt the fear, because I know that everything will sort itself out, but you have to work hard for it. So you have to kind of address it in a way that fear, like in most cases, you will not die of facing
Most
your fear.
cases.
Like building a company. So it depends on, of course, what you're doing. But I think addressing fear, but addressing it in a way that's where you see the potential in fear, if that makes any sense.
Addressing fear, how? What did you say? The last sentence? I didn't get it.
Just taking on, like, fear of standing on stage, fear of building a company, fear of getting married, any fear that you
Yes,
have, you
yes.
have to
The
look
main
at
monster. The main monster.
the main monster
The main
for
monster. That's why you are the main hero today.
Mm.
I wanted to comment on each other, not just asking you questions. And if anybody has a question, we can take it right away because we have a very short time. I was told we have a shorter time. Darja, I want to quote you. You said, "I'm a nomad at heart. You make strange corners. You make strange corners around the world your home, and you are You resemble to technology a little bit. Let me tell you why.
Sorry, what
You
was
said,
the last one?
You said,
Yeah.
I'm quoting you from your profile. Okay. You said that you are a nomad at heart, you travel a lot, you feel all the places are home. And you said that you are a little bit, you live in disorder a little bit, the way you think, I mean, the creativity side. To me, you resemble to technology. This is what I saw in making the whole world a world with no maps. I
Yeah.
wrote this. So the question is, what are the benefits of the chaotic creativity with no limits and outside the rigid manuals? Because you said also a very beautiful sentence. You said, I question all the rules to put better ones. I love this one.
Yeah, I think rules and regulations, they are not universal facts. They are made by us. And I think we should maybe look at them and like not just follow every rule that is given to us. And I think this pandemic has shown that very clearly that are we really willing to give up our freedom for what it is? And yeah, it comes to everything. Question rules, and then that gives room for something new. And especially like if we're talking about women here, and we're talking about biases, and we're talking about challenges. For instance, motherhood. Yeah, it can be seen as a bias, or it can be seen. But then, I think the passion lies in especially in business, it lies in vision, a very ambitious and strong vision and purpose. And if you, all the mothers, we know that when there's a problem with a kid, we don't return them, do we? Or we don't like give them away and change to something else. We're committed to them. And I think if we have a vision that it's ambitious enough and it goes beyond our own ego, like it goes beyond, it's not about me anymore. It's beyond something, it's about something else. Then we're going to commit to that, and then challenges are no longer an issue. We're going to overcome them as we do with our children too. So questioning rules and bringing, yeah, I think we should look at all things from different angles and then find out where we stand in that.
Yes, these two main points, a land with no map is technology, and breaking the rules, I guess technology is not waiting for any rule.
Yeah, and I think when it comes to nomad,
it's very accelerated.
Yeah,
yes.
When it comes to the nomad part, yeah, I'm nomad at heart, and I am actually living that life at the moment. I built Moxworld on a way, it's embracing a trust-based nomad culture. That means that we're everywhere where we're needed, and diversity is a very big part of it. Like we are, as I said, from different cultures and countries, and that's how we operate too. Yeah, it's not rooted in one physical space or, yeah.
Padman, you talked about a very quick solution during crisis. This is the Speedy Gonzalez style. You talked about this a very quick solution during the pandemic, and a solution for what is most important to most of people, that is money and cash. Yeah. And we were hearing other panels saying, just start, don't plan it. How could you do this? Did you follow this side of the story, knowing that money is very delicate? And how could you able to plan this that quickly and implement it in a single year?
So let me start a little bit before that, right? So when I came over here, I left the World Economic Forum and started with my family's businesses. And one of the things that I was seeing was employees that have been working with us for even 10 years that were reasonably well paid. They always had these emergencies and life events. They always needed a loan. And I kind of left it alone because I was busy in the day-to-day. And then it hit me at home. There was my nanny had just joined us from Nepal. She'd hardly been with us for 6 months. And there was a Nepal earthquake, and her home and the small business that she was supporting her family had been destroyed in that earthquake. What ended up happening is she turned to me as her employer for help to support her and her family at that time. And of course, I helped but what I thought was how many more of these conversations are happening across the world today.
Yes.
And how many more people depend on their employer, not their financial services, not what they've built over the years, but their employer to provide that support. And that's why I built Rise. Now, Rise was providing financial services because everyone should have access to fair financial services and be able to build a financial safety net for themselves. And it did really well, right? It is doing really well. We're funded by the IFC FinTech Fund as well as MEVP, which is one of the largest investors in the region. But then COVID hit, right? And so, sorry, let me take it back. February 2020, we closed the funding round. COVID hit March 2020. We all went into lockdown. And many of our clients who are migrants couldn't figure out how to send the cash that they'd always been sending and to get the person on the receiving end to actually receive the money, or even if they got lucky enough to do that, how to spend that money. Cash was no longer usable. And so, and because we'd never touched this, we sort of went back and said, how can we fix this, right? We know this area really well. What tech can we use to build it? And so we knew people.
You didn't have even the shock effect. You started right away planning and.
Yes, because see, the thing was that we're really passionate about what we do, and we're passionate about solving problems for our customers. And what's really important to us is that they have that access. When we saw they were in crises, we felt that we needed to build something for them. So we went about building it for them. In that period, we also recognize that migrants are a specific use case of a very large phenomenon. And what is this phenomenon? As I mentioned before, 1/3 of the world works. 1/3 of that world is actually catered to by financial services. The rest of the world, the 2/3, actually has to figure out how to spend the 1/3's money.
Yes.
How to gain access to it. And so then we moved from the specific use case, which is migrants, to providing access to anyone, anywhere. And so now, having built that technology, and by the way, we're the only ones that have that tech, is having built that technology. We're in over 100 countries. We've, in these last couple of months, so we started at the end of January, put over $100 million onto the platform. And it's growing with velocity, because in these last 20 days, we have put more money onto the platform, more people have used it than in the first 6 months of operation. So how can you build it? You can build it because you have passion. You really feel like you're the one that can fix this problem.
Yeah.
And why do you build it? Because you feel like you're the best set to do it.
Yes.
And that's how you get started.
If anybody has any question, I'm ready to take it. But I just have one question for the four of you. Outside crisis and outside organization, if I am on my own, every time we think that anybody who wants to start a business should have a certain budget or capital. And this prevents many to go into the stream. What can we say about that? Do we really need a certain capital, a certain budget? Do we need to be to have a certain income, a big one, to start a business alone?
Actually, to be really frank with you, money is the easiest thing to get. It's the energy, the power, the enthusiasm, the leadership, the vision. That's the hardest thing, because that's something you cannot buy. But because I believe hustle beats talent if talent doesn't hustle, you know? So money is the easiest thing. You got loans, you got investors, you got family and friends, you got your own income. There's so many ways to get money and so many ways to fail fast and fail cheap and like not blow away cash and burn it. So, and I know this sounds funny to people who are not in business yet, because to you, money is the hardest thing to get. But no, when you're an entrepreneur, you're alone. Your social life is affected, your surroundings is affected, your family life is affected. You on a personal level, your mental health sometimes is affected. But money is not the hardest thing to get. It's the easiest thing to get, actually.
So based on that, what should be step one? If not having enough money to start a business is step one, what should
Knowledge.
be step one?
Yeah.
Knowledge.
Knowledge.
Yeah. You have to be the best. Like and you have to surround self with people that are better than you, and kind of learn from people that are within the field that you're in, and that could give you the skills that you need to run your business more profitable, or like do the things that you want to do. But as mentioned, like the money part of things, you can always have a for the first year that I had the company, I had a 100% position in my old job in the construction industry. So money you can get, and you can bootstrap, and you can borrow money and everything like that, but you need knowledge, the skill set to be able to make an impact, leave a legacy, and do some change.
Taking an idea to execution sounds sometimes very huge to everybody, to anybody who thinks alone. How can we really make the idea easy to implement?
I'd like to
How can we stop thinking and move on?
I think I would challenge this a little bit. I think you do need knowledge, but I think first, even before that, you need the vision. You need the vision that, and you need to be able to communicate that vision in a way that you attract the knowledge.
But when you doubt it, when you
yeah.
doubt the vision, sometimes you doubt your vision.
Sorry, sometimes.
Sometimes you doubt your vision. You
Yeah,
doubt yourself.
I think you need to get that clear, because if you doubt your vision, every single person will doubt your vision. Like you won't, like your investors are going to doubt your vision. Your clients are going to doubt your vision. Your partners, your employees, everyone is going to doubt your vision if you doubt your vision yourself. So get that clear first. Why am I doing this? What is it that I want to achieve with my thing? And then you attract the right people. If you manage to communicate that in a way that is a compelling way, I'm not going to talk 5 minutes.
It's for me. It's for me. It's my punishment.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, so I think if you get that right, you will attract exactly the right things, people, investors,
You attract
knowledge,
the right
everything.
market. You attract the right market.
Exactly.
Yes.
And then the train can just take off.
Hopefully. So there were questions here. You want to ask what?
Biggest fear for women to start in business is fear of failure. Sarah, you alluded to it, but how do you keep motivated when you fail? I failed. I'm much better now. I've come back. How do you get that motivation? How do you keep your ikigai?
It's I mean, what other motivation do you need than you only live once? You got one life, you got one shot. Like some people make me feel like they're gonna come back and fix it once they're gone. You have one life, one shot. I mean, I've been bankrupt twice. I've been divorced twice. Like, I'm gonna get married again. I'm gonna like life doesn't end just because something went wrong. It's like your pants don't fit. You return them and get new ones. Life is simple, but it's culture and programming that made us believe that once you fail, it's an embarrassment.
Change the rules.
Change the rules, change the culture, change your mindset. And it's not a big deal. Failure is a school.
Accumulating. Yes, it is school. It is school.
It is.
So again, the message is go ahead, fail as much as possible to reach there.
Let's succeed as much
Keep
as
on
possible.
trying. Keep on trying. Any other question? Anybody has a question? Okay, I need your recommendation, the final one, if possible. Please make it short. We start with you.
Use your passion to get started, right? Use it to build your vision and to get started, because actually one of the biggest stoppers of women starting businesses is they feel they will not succeed. And if you don't feel like you'll succeed, you'll never get started. So move to action. If you've got an idea and you've got the passion, move to action.
Tarja?
I go one step back. How many of you are trying to build your private, like family, your own lives around the work that you have? But I question that very, very strongly. I think you need to create your job and your work life around your dream life. Like figure out what kind of a life do you want to live. Like for me, it's a nomad life. So what does it mean? I need to create a business or get a job that allows me to live my dream life. I'm not going to wait until I'm 65 and retire. No, I want to live my dream life today. And most of the jobs that are around will not allow me to do that. So I didn't really have an option. So get your own business then and draw the lines and write the rules accordingly. And then attract similar-minded people who want to be part of that business culture and who want to work in this sort of a way. And I think that allows you to go very, very far because you don't compromise your dream life
any given day.
Yes. Charlotte, sometimes the hardest questions seem to be, what do you want?
For my sake, I want to leave a legacy. I want to make an impact on the world with the companies the company that I'm building and that I know I will be building in the future. But I would say, like, for anybody that has some sort of passion idea, just start, because you only live once. And for sure, the pandemic and other situations in the world have shown us how fragile life can be and the freedom can be. I wouldn't say that entrepreneurship gives you a lot of freedom, because you're under the spell of your customers all the time, so you kind of have to adjust to them. But I would encourage everybody to start a business anyway, because you're able to learn so much. You will have valuable experience if you fail that you can contribute to in other jobs and so on. But starting something, building on your passion, and just having fun along the way it's so important.
Yes. Sarah, you closed the business to start a new one.
Yeah.
Sometimes we say that the bird is in hand is better than the 10 on the tree. But some other people say that the root for one on the tree is much better than the one in hand. It's a burden, the one in hand.
It is. It is. I'd rather take that time and put it into something I love and I enjoy doing than doing that. But my advice to everyone is just that, I don't know if you guys notice, if you ever ask somebody, how did you make it? They always say the same thing. Passion, confidence, blah, 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 blah. They all say the same thing, but and you're like, okay, I have it all, but how? Nobody knows how, because nobody knows how they made it. Your vision, your dream needs legs. Give it the legs and it's going to walk on its own. It all happens spontaneously. There's no plan. There's nothing you can follow. And that's why nobody has a story to how they made it happen. They always lay down the same rules for you. Just start,
But usually they don't talk about the dark side. I wonder why successful people don't talk about the dark
But
side.
people do relate to the dark side. A lot of us failed, but not a lot of us succeeded. So to relate to you, I got to take you to the deepest and darkest part of it.
Maybe if they talk about it, they will encourage people more.
Yeah,
If we talk about depression, anger, and
Of course.
failure, we encourage people more.
I love talking about
Yes.
failure.
Time out. Time is out.
But
Okay, before I
no, please.
just
I just wanted
one
to
sentence.
make one comment.
Yes, go ahead.
If I may, with your
Yes,
permission.
of course.
The word failure has been used a lot,
Yes.
which is fine. We need to firstly demystify failure. So I have a rule. It's a 5 F's rule. So remember, everybody: fail fast, fail frequently, fail frugally, failure is not fatal, and always fail forward. Fail, move forward. Fail, move forward.
Yes.
And there's a 6th bonus failure, the 6th F of failure. Failure is a good F word.
Yes, it's a good one. Of course, it's a good one. So fail again as much as you can.
Just go
As
for
much
it.
as you can to reach there better, to reach success better.
And another comment from Tari, what she said about retiring at 65. The mortality age is now about 78 to 82. In about 25 years, it's going to be about 125. In about 50 to 75 years, it'll be closer to 200. So therefore, the whole way we look at the industrial age thinking of work, then retire, then finish, then, that's completely shifting in our lifetimes.
So we're
I
born
think
at 65 now.
Sorry?
We're born at 65. We start from
Exactly.
65.
Okay. Anyway.
Okay, I want just to end with the sentence I started with. The title of this book that I really liked is Die Empty. And I wish everybody could do that.
Thank you.
So good afternoon and salam alaikum. Being here, I feel obliged to say at least one word at Arabic. We became to the 4th session today morning, which will be about the purpose. And I have a wonderful panel here representing the government, representing the public service, representing the education, and representing the startups. So the first thing, and the consultancy, if I may say so, I'm a consultant at this moment. So can we start by introducing ourselves in 1-2 minutes, each of us, before we go to the discussion with 3 questions? So I do not wish to give the order. Who wish to be the champion? Anna-Marie, ready to start?
Yes.
And go ahead.
I'll dive in.
Slowly, non-English natives.
Yes. I've been told that both in English and French, I speak with the speed of a machine gun that's quite rapid, so I apologize. My name's Anne Rimmer. I work for the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. I work on entrepreneurial policy. But previous to that, I was a senior civil servant in the UK public sector. I worked for the Department for Education on a number of issues related to higher education. And previous to that, I worked for the Canadian government.
I am Maria Siringella. I'm Deputy Minister of Labour and Social Affairs in Greece. And I am responsible for gender equality issues, demography and family. I am also a Vice President of EPP Women. EPP is the European People's Party. It consists of the political parties of the center-right direction of the European Union. In the past, I was in the youth organization of Nea Demokratia. Nea Demokratia is the political party that is now in the government in Greece. And I am a civil servant. My job is a civil servant in the Ministry of Interior. And I have worked in many positions in the private sector also, in the human resources direction. And I have 2 kids. This is, I am always saying, because it is something that many women have to face, because we have all these multiple roles. That now they are teenagers. We are in a very difficult, as you may know, age. And I am trying to fulfill all the criteria to be a good politician.
Mona.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Mona Ataya. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I'm the founder and CEO of Mum's World. Mum's World is a leading e-commerce vertical for all things mother, baby, and child in the MENA region. I'm also a co-founder of Bait.com. So I'm one of the probably early tech entrepreneurs in the region. I'm also a mother of 3 teenage boys. 2 of them are twins. They're submitting their college applications literally today. And I asked myself this morning, where has time gone? You know, suddenly they've moved from being babies to being men who are leaving the house. I am a wife, a mother, a sister, a shareholder, a board member, an employee, a leader, a manager. I wear many, many hats. And my life journey is about kind of balancing these hats and giving all of them their due. And it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Sabia.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Such a pleasure to be here today, and thanks for inviting me to this event. My name is Dr. Sabiha Mumtaz. I am with University of Wollongong in Dubai. I teach HRM and behavior, and my passion is the upliftment and the empowerment of my students, and more about it later as we talk about it. And since everyone is mentioning, I have 1 son, but I have many kids because the university provides me that opportunity to nurture and fulfill this instinct of making a difference in the lives of so many young people that we have. So thank you very much. Pleasure to be here.
So thank you. And my name is Edith Herzog. I run a small consultancy in Brussels called Vision and Values. Originally, I am Hungarian. And just maybe to introduce my success story in 4 short articles or bullet points, because they are interesting as they were all built on failure. Yeah? When I was a happy researcher in the end of 80s, suddenly the system changed in the entire Central Eastern European region, being a Hungarian, which means that my husband lost the job in day 1. And therefore, my researcher life was at risk because I could not earn enough for the family. And therefore, I had to apply. I had no other choice. I decided that I have the capability to apply to the multinational. So I did so. And I have got a job against 32 gentlemen. So that was the success built of the failure of the society to provide job for people like my husband. And then I have engaged in politics because I wanted to be part of the change. And when the people recognized that there are so many people from Budapest in politics, but very many from the countryside, I'm from the small village, they kind of looked at me that I have to try to get through this gate. So I became a politician, parallel to being a businesswoman responsible for Central Eastern Europe. And this is how I ended in the European Parliament for 10 years, dealing with the difficult issues, energy, innovation, technology, etc., for 10 years. And then I recognized that there is no really way back to Hungary for me because the democracy is very different that I could agree or stand. So I created my consultancy in Brussels. What's my biggest issue now? To remain small. I do not wish to be a big company anymore. I try to share my life 3 days work, 3 maximum 4 days work per week, give 1 or 2 days to volunteerism. Yeah, to keep my mind brush up, make all of the ideas which I don't wish to do it in the business in the voluntary world, serving in the Global Council for Research Data Alliance and many other voluntary jobs. And yes, I am mother of 3 plus 2, so I born 3, I grown up 5. And yeah, I just wish to be the role model from the very small childhood. That was the only profession when they asked me what do I wish to be. I always wanted to be a role model to the others, not necessarily leader. So we are getting to the most important part of the Ikigai. When you look the chart, within Ikigai, the purpose is the thing which people are looking for. So if you look what the purpose is built up, you need 4 criteria. That you know the thing you do and you actually do it. So this is the first. The second one, that you like to do that. Yeah. So it's something you really like. The third element, that you earn with it. Yeah. So there is some revenue or some income to survive. And the fourth element, that actually you are demanded by the society or by the market or how you call it. So there is a greater demand, there is a greater good to serve. These are the 4 elements. So my question to the ladies, what do you think about the 4 in your Ikigai and in your success?
My Ikigai right now is to work for a mentoring project. I'm leading a women empowerment mentoring project for early career female students. And this is a pilot project we've recently launched with the support of a wonderful group of students in the region who are providing me their time free of cost. So when we were talking about money and sourcing of money, my project model is completely based on voluntary service. And I myself was amazed by the amount of support which I got from different stakeholders. So one of the aspects of Ikigai, as you mentioned, Edith, is you said we need to earn. And for me, money is just a currency. It's a validation tool, right? So anything which gives us what we need is money, right? So for me, even though this project is not earning me anything, it is very precious to me because it gives me that intrinsic satisfaction, and that is the currency of my joy. So that's my Ikigai right now. And with all the brilliant people over here, I'm seeking your support in making this project a bigger success. Thank you.
Thank you. So what's your Ikigai?
So just for perspective, I was told this question 10 seconds ago. So it's a
Yeah. So
here's the improvising.
You you like,
Yes.
you earn, and you make it for a greater demand.
So the simple answer for me is from a very young age, whatever I did, I made sure that I did 110%. It was part of my nature. So when I went to class, I needed to be the top of the class. When I rode horses and went into a show jumping, I needed to be first. When I ran, I needed to run faster. That was my nature, and every person is different. But from a very young age, I knew that if I did something, I had to give it my 110%. And I was competing against no one but myself. And that really served me in my life. So as I progressed through life, whether it was school or college or my first job, I always gave it 110%. And I realized that once you basically take in skills, resources, information, and develop as a human being every single day, that in itself, for me, was my satisfaction. That was my joy. So my ikigai, if you like, is knowing today that I am giving today the best that I possibly can. And as a leader and as an entrepreneur, every day is difficult. Every day is different than the day before. And insofar that at night I go to bed thinking or believing that I've given it my all, even if I failed, or even if I made mistakes, or even if I said or did something I shouldn't, that was the best that I could possibly do as Mona. And so that's my kind of stamp on how I live my life.
Thank you. Maria.
My Ikigai came when I was in the youth organization of the political party, I was the only woman in the executive board. And in the first side, I said that, yes, I am the best. But after some meetings, I understood that there are other women that, though that they are not in the executive board like me, but they are also very good. Maybe some of them are better than me. So my IKIGAI was to support, and is now to support, the women, and not theoretically, but having projects coming from the national plan that we are now implementing in my country, coming in two axes. First of all, to support women to have a job, especially women that are in the vulnerable groups, like being victims of violence, of domestic violence, of a gender-based violence. In Greece, and not only in Greece, as far as I know, too many women are all over the world. We had a race because of the lockdown. So we made the counseling centers, having proposing to women having psychological support, having working support in coordination with the Human Resources Organization of Greece, so to give them all the skills of going outside of the cycle of violence, and especially if they have kids, underage kids, to take them in shelters and at the same time to find a job. And another one is the new technologies in Greece and all over the world. Now new technologies play a big role. For this reason, we made an innovation lab for women and girls, in cooperation, of course, with the Norwegian lab, and of course with the Ministry of Education and of Ministry of Exterior, and with all other academia, research centers, and of course Microsoft Alas, Google Alas, Cisco Alas. So all together to find to make this innovation, a new innovation organization that will support women in the labor market.
Thank you. So when I was thinking about this question, I think I was sort of honest with myself, like, does every day do I wake up when that alarm goes off and be like, yes? And I think we need to sort of reflect that some days you're not finding it. And I was thinking, well, where do I find my ikigai on the day, which is like, I don't want to have that meeting that's going to go on forever, or I've got this really difficult situation, or I'm not sure that the work I'm doing, although I believe in it, has value and is having the impact I wanted. And I think one thing I've learned over the past few years, and in particular, really sort of 2019, 2020, where I was working for the Ministry of Education in the UK. I was responsible for a program that received a lot of European funding. You may be aware of something called Brexit that was quite challenging. We just managed to get over that, and then COVID hit, which also had a big impact on education. And how I sort of found my ikigai on any given day was saying, where do I find my passion today, or where am I going to my influences? So some days it was like, well, I'm not going to, maybe I'm not finding the value in some of the endless meetings I'm sitting in, but I can make my team better. And how am I going to support them to grow, and seeing them thrive? That's going to give me my ikigai. And some days it was saying, actually, there's some vulnerable students that aren't being looked after, but I'm going to be their advocate in these meetings with senior people and make sure that their needs are being looked after. And that's where I'm going to find my ikigai today. And also relying on sort of family and support, and saying, actually, I'm quite lucky. I'm well paid for my job, and that enables me to do things with my family, and that in turn gives me the passion I'm looking for. And so I think maybe actually being able to sort of evolve and find resilience in those tough times, about that where that passion is going to come from has to move, because otherwise we risk burning it out. And what starts out as a dream job ends up becoming a nightmare, because you end up having to deal with so much of the difficult parts of it. And so maybe that's a slightly different slant on the question, but I guess whether I have ikigai and where I find it is kind of a moving target.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So yeah, I might wish to share you also the small anecdote that how I rebuild my ikigai, because being in the European Parliament, successful MEP, vice president, a socialist, etc., working on the great things, and then you find yourself, to restart. And I was very scared, yeah. I knew that I like things, I knew that I know things, I knew that I need to earn money. But what happened to me, I couldn't find the right purpose. What will be my purpose? And then on the day when I went to establish my company, it was the lady working there. Actually, after working hours, 20 minutes, she left because she said we have to finish the paperwork and she rather stays. So doing that, I decided to send a letter of satisfaction to her manager. Yeah, and then I left for 1 month holiday. I went back to Hungary, and then I came back. I went back to the Securex office, which is about to establishing a company, and the lady was not there. So I asked, "Oh, where is she?" And they said, "Oh, she is nominated to be a boss." I said, "What?" She was nominated to the boss. How? Because the customer, they didn't know that it was me. The customer sent a letter of satisfaction, and then the bosses looked her records. Yeah, and they identified that for 17 years staying in the same job, she really has better data than the others in the other tables. Therefore, now she is the boss. And then I said, okay, isn't it an impact? Isn't it a good purpose? So I went home. And guess what? I have got a letter from the vice president responsible for strategy of Securex, sending me a letter that she has got a letter of satisfaction, accelerated up, and they want to use it in the Securex teaching books for all the employees that how to satisfy customer needs. Can they use the letter? Yeah, another level of impact. Yeah, so think about the purpose to generate the impact. That was the lesson for me, and then I was sure that I will be a successful business person after all. The question I'd like to ask you, there is a purpose for all of us to be a leader. And my question that, was it easier to go from no leadership to leadership, so the leadership 0 to leadership 1, or it is more challenge to go from leadership 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 up on the accelerating up? How do you see that?
I see that moving from step 0 to step 1 is the most difficult part. In management literature, we call it the broken rung. So you're trying to climb the ladder, and there is just no first rung over there. So you have to take that giant leap of faith sort of to move up, where if you have people who are hand holding you, it makes it easier, and that's where the supporting network comes in. After that, climbing the stairs is relatively easier, still not easy, but yes. So I want to share one anecdote from my personal life. This is when I was not even working. I did my master's in physics, and when I'm from a very small town person in India. So after my bachelor's, I just applied for and got selected in one of the top national universities in India. When I went there in the master's class, first of all, I was from an all-females education background. So my schooling was in an all-female school so far. Then I come into the master's program at the university, and there are just 2 females, me and one more. And then there is a whole class full of men, and all the professors are men. And as it is small town, kind of naive person moving into the big bad world for the first time. So the professor asked us to introduce ourselves, and very timidly I introduced, and then he said, okay, so you're from so-and-so city. How did you get admission to this university? And then I mentioned how I was on the merit list. And he had sort of a snigger, and he said, okay, so that was your percentage, so and so in a small university. Let's see how you prove yourself here. So there was this doubt in his eyes on first of all, a female into a very male-dominated world, and then that too from a small town. So I was literally in tears. Of course, there's no concept of mentors because there are no women around. Everyone is pretty much thinking in the same way. I called up my mom and I said, and those were pre-mobile times in India. So we had to actually go to a PCO and dial, and I talked to my mom and I said, you know, I'm literally shaking with fear in this university. I want to come back. I just don't want to do this program. I'll study wherever. And she said, okay, you come with your dad tomorrow. He had gone to drop me there. I mean, this is cultural things that I'm sharing with you, that I was not even allowed to travel to my university alone, even though I was a master's student, so I was not a bachelor's student. I said, fine. I packed all my bags and I came to my hostel gate in the morning. And meanwhile, later I came to know, she called my dad and she said, if you go there, she'll become weak. And so you don't go there. I've just told her, and then we'll give some excuse to her later on. So she kind of, now I'm analyzing, she pulled me out of that weak moment. She gave me the satisfaction and hope that there is someone, and then she pulled the rug from beneath my feet to give me more wings to fly, as I would like to think. So I've been blessed that when I was climbing on the broken rung, I had lots of people to support me. My parents were always there for me, even though culturally it was a very difficult situation. Then after my marriage, my husband and my in-laws supported me. I remember another episode is that I got selected to work in a public sector bank in India. I was very scared to go to another city, just married 1 month, and I said, no, I don't want to travel to another place. And my mother-in-law, and I'm talking about traditional Muslim middle-class family in India, she came to me. She's not very educated herself, and sorry, I just get a little emotional when I think about it. Sorry. So. So she came to me and she said, I'm so sorry.
Take your time, Shabia. Yeah? Do you wish that we go forward and you come back
No,
to the
no,
story?
it's fine. So she said, I've never been able to accomplish what I wanted to do. She wanted to be a lawyer. So she pushed me and she said, these 3 months will just go by. We are not going anywhere. So that's how I went to my corporate life, and alhamdulillah, I worked really hard there, and I was selected to represent the bank at India level. So for me, thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. So for me, my broken rung, I was privileged that I did not fall on the broken rung, but there are not so many other privileged people. So that is my ikigai. To pull people up.
Thank you.
And I'm so sorry for demonstrating the stereotypical image of women. I'm so sorry for that. Yeah.
Don't worry, Shabia. I think the 21st century is about the stories, not about the facts and not about the numbers. It's about the stories. Mona.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's interesting that leadership is always a reflection of the road less traveled, and it's always an emotional road, because not everyone goes down that path. And going back to your question, you said, is it easier to go from 0 to 1 or 1 to 2? The reality is leadership does not start at a job. You don't need to be a CEO or a manager or even an entrepreneur to be a leader. You can be a leader at any stage in your life and at any age. For me, leadership is about having courage to do what you love and what you believe in. It's about having vision and the ability to inspire those around you to follow your vision, even though they don't see it. Leadership is about grit. It's about resilience. This was talked earlier. It's about the road less traveled. It's about doing something that others either don't want to do or cannot do. For me personally, I've always gone down the road of challenging the status quo. I've always believed that if I worked hard, I could lead my initiatives, because with leadership, there comes freedom and empowerment. When you have a vision and you're able to encourage those or inspire those around you to follow you to the end line, that is freedom and that is strength. For me today, with my second entrepreneurial venture, so my e-commerce business today is a decade old. We are the first women-led technology business in the region to raise 6 rounds of funding. We're the first to exit in the region. We have over 300 team members in the region. Our C-level are all women. We've really broken the barriers across many, many touch points when everybody told us you cannot do it. And we did it because we believed in the vision and we inspired those around us to do it. Personally, I find it easier to lead than to manage, simply because as a manager, you have to be very particular on the excellence of the execution, on the excellence of the operation, on the nitty-gritty details. That's the manager. What the leader is doing is the leader is looking from on top. The leader can see holistically. And so while I can manage, and I have been managing for many decades, today I'm at this point where the leadership allows me to direct the path for the future, not only for my businesses, but for women and women empowerment and women freedom, and women really reinventing and disrupting the ecosystem. And we're seeing it happen. And I look forward to continue working with many women, particularly in this part of the world, on leading disruptive initiatives. And thank you again for your story.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. So I'd like to finish this session by thanking all of you to be here and ask for your 5-10 minutes time with Anna-Marie, because before the afternoon session, we wish to run the small Mentimeter question, only 3 of them, to prepare the afternoon session. And we really need, you can prepare your mobile phone and go to the Menticom to make those sessions. So I'd like to say a big thanks for the panelists to being with us. Thanks to the audience to being with us. And especially I'd like to say thanks to our Arabic language speaking friends. So Shukran ala hosn isiti maikum.